Tonight we'll drift through 6 simple dishes, each one a quiet comfort from a kitchen past. Some came from seaside cafes, others from humble staff rooms or early morning bakeries, but all of them in their own way are soft steps toward rest. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let the warmth of familiar flavors guide you gently towards sleep. The first recipe tonight is rice porridge with a soft-boiled egg and green onion. There was a Korean prep cook I worked alongside during my early days in London. His name was Jay, and he moved like water. Quiet, measured, deliberate. Every morning, before the kitchen came alive with orders and clatter, and every evening after the last pan had been scrubbed, he made the same thing: rice porridge with a soft-boiled egg and a handful of chopped green onions. It wasn't on the menu, it wasn't shared. It was his ritual twice daily, like prayer. He used to say, "Porridge makes no demands, just space to breathe." And when you watched him prepare it, you understood what he meant. It started with leftover rice, always cold, unassuming, stowed away in a lidded tub from the night before. He'd tip it into a small saucepan and add water by feel, never measuring. Enough to cover the grains, then a little more. He'd set it on the stove at the lowest heat and wait. The kitchen at that hour, either at the edge of dawn or long past closing, was its own world. Dim overheads, steam tracing lazy lines across the air, and a silence that felt earned. While the porridge simmered, Jay would lean against the counter, arms folded, eyes distant, not watching it exactly, just being near. Every few minutes, he'd stir. The rice would begin to break down, releasing starch, thickening slowly into something closer to breath than food. The scent was simple: warm grain and steam, faintly sweet, faintly savory. He never added much. A pinch of salt, sometimes a sliver of ginger, but never more. Too much flavor, he once told me, and it forgets to comfort. While it thickened, he'd soft boil an egg, always exactly 6 minutes. The water boiled gently, the egg lowered in with the reverence of a borrowed heirloom. When the timer rang, he'd rinse it under cold water, then crack the shell with the back of a spoon, rolling it gently before peeling. The whites were firm but tender, the yolk like golden silk, barely held together, ready to pool at the touch of a spoon. He poured the porridge into a shallow bowl, off-white porcelain, with a faint chip on the rim. The egg would go right in the center, split just slightly, so the yolk spilled a little, like morning sun peeking through clouds. And then the green onions, freshly sliced, scattered like confetti across snow. That was all. He ate it slowly, crouched on an upturned milk crate, elbows resting on knees, spoon moving with rhythm. No distractions, no rush. I watched him once, curious, and he just said, "This is how I quiet the noise." I didn't ask what he meant, because I think I already knew. That porridge taught me more about food than most plated dinners ever could. It was humble, repetitive, but it held him, bookended his days, a small warm pause between everything else. Sometimes now, when the day has been long and I need something soft to land on, I make it too. I don't follow a recipe. I remember how he did it. I start with leftover rice, add water, and let it go slowly. I boil 1 egg. I slice green onions, thin enough to wilt when they touch the steam. I use the quiet to listen, to myself, to the room, to the stillness that meals like this allow. And when I eat it, spoonful by spoonful, I remember Jay, his quiet strength, and the kitchen lights flickering against the window pane. I remember that food doesn't have to shout to matter. Sometimes it just needs to hold space. So if tonight feels noisy, inside or out, make yourself this porridge. Let the rice soften, the water warm, the silence stretch. Boil an egg gently, slice something green, serve it in a bowl that feels familiar. And let each bite be a breath. Let the warmth in. Let the stillness grow. And sleep, knowing that comfort can be as simple as rice, an egg, and time. Good night. That was recipe 1. The second recipe tonight is toasted English muffin with butter and strawberry jam. There was a hotel cook I trained under once in Manchester. Her name was Moira. Sharp-tongued, fast-moving, and always half a step ahead of everyone else on the line. But when it came to one thing, a simple toasted English muffin, she slowed down every time. She'd split it with care, using a fork, not a knife. Respect the muffin's split, she'd say. You don't cut an English muffin, you open it, like a letter from someone you miss. And when she said it, you listened, because she meant it. She never toasted them all the way through, just enough so the outside was golden, but the center still had a touch of chew. She said the heat should kiss it, not conquer it. The halves went face down on a wide, flat top, weighed gently with the back of a spatula to encourage an even sear. The smell would rise immediately. Crisp bread, flour, something just shy of nostalgia. Then came the butter, and this was where she got reverent. It's not a surface, she used to say, holding one steaming half in her hand like a tiny plate. It's a landscape. Butter it, like you mean it. Then give it something sweet to say. She'd use cold butter, sliced thin, so it softened slowly as she pressed it in. Every nook, every crag, every soft canyon in that golden terrain. You'd see it melt in rivulets, disappearing into the warm bread, like snow vanishing into spring soil. And then strawberry jam. Always strawberry. Homemade if she had it. Store-bought if not, but only if it was good. Too sweet, she'd mutter, inspecting a new jar, and it forgets how to speak. She used the back of a spoon to spread it, not a knife, so it would glide on softly, pooling slightly in the buttered dips. She never served them stacked. Always open-faced, always warm. She'd eat hers standing by the delivery door, one half in each hand, elbows out like a bird mid-flap, eyes on the first signs of daylight through the frosted glass. She said she liked the quiet then, that the jam tasted brighter when the city hadn't quite woken up. I started copying her, after a while. At first just for the taste, but then for the ritual, the moment, the way the toast gave way under the teeth, then the butter, then the sweet. A small architecture of comfort, built in layers, built slow. Now whenever I need a pause, or the evening feels heavy with old thoughts, I reach for an English muffin. I split it gently with a fork, listen to the pull of the crumb. I toast it until the edges whisper of crunch, then press butter into its warm heart, like I'm tending a little garden. I give it jam, not a smear, but a statement. Something sweet to say, and I eat it slowly, at the kitchen counter, lights low, city quiet. Sometimes I remember Moira, her rolled sleeves, her quick wit, and the way her hands slowed for this one simple thing. It reminds me that not everything needs to be elaborate to be memorable, that comfort often lives in what we repeat, with care, and without rush. So tonight, if you need something small that speaks in kindness, toast yourself an English muffin, butter it deeply, let it say something sweet, and let the warmth and the quiet rise in you like dawn. Good night. That was recipe 2. The third recipe tonight is vanilla chia pudding with almond milk. I was barely 20, still learning the rhythms of professional kitchens, when I was hired to cater a retreat for a law firm, an old moneyed one, full of leather chairs and creaky floors. The venue was a countryside estate with ivy-covered walls, endless hedges, and fire pits scattered like secrets across the grounds. It was a crisp autumn weekend, and my job was to prepare all the meals from morning till night. Most of the guests stayed formal, stiff in posture, and careful with their compliments. But there was one little girl, the daughter of a senior partner, who moved through the place like wind through leaves, quiet, curious, never disruptive, but always watching. She sat at the corner of the dining room during the late evening snack hour, legs swinging, notebook open but untouched. On the second night, I made something simple: vanilla chia pudding with almond milk. It was the only dish on the menu that wasn't cooked. I made it the night before in a large ceramic bowl, letting the seeds swell in silence while the vanilla settled in. There was something gentle about it. Milk, seeds, time, nothing loud, no fire. I spooned it into little glass jars, topping each with a few slivered almonds and a drop of honey. As I carried them out on a tray, she looked up and asked, "Is it okay to eat something that feels like morning at night?" I paused, then smiled. "Yes," I said, "especially then, because that's what this pudding is. It's the soft hush of morning carried into the evening. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't sparkle or steam. It simply is. Cool, creamy, subtle, like calm itself. You begin by mixing almond milk and chia seeds in a wide bowl, stirring slowly, steadily, until the seeds swirl like flecks of dusk in a pale sky. Then comes the vanilla, pure extract. Not too much, just enough to round the edges of the milk. A touch of maple syrup or honey, if sweetness calls to you. And then you wait. That's the real preparation. Letting it sit in the fridge for hours, overnight, preferably. Letting time do the thickening. Letting quiet settle in. The seeds, at first floating, will soften and swell, absorbing the milk, turning the mixture into something soft and spoonable. When it's ready, you don't scoop it like custard. You coax it. You let it ease into the bowl or jar, thick but not heavy. You top it simply, maybe almonds, maybe berries, maybe nothing at all. It doesn't need much. Eating it is almost like dreaming. The texture is soft, like tiny pearls in silk. The flavor mild, with hints of vanilla and nut. The coolness a lull against the warmth of day's end. It asks nothing from you. No heat, no chew, no rush. And sometimes, that's what we need. Food that feels like morning, even at night. A reminder that calm doesn't belong to any one time of day. That you're allowed to feel soft when the world is winding down. So if this evening finds you weary, or thoughtful, or just in need of something gentle, stir some chia into milk, add a little vanilla, let it sit, let it settle, and when the night is quiet, take a spoonful. Eat slowly, breathe deeply, sleep peacefully. Good night. That was recipe 3. The 4th recipe tonight is simple buttered couscous with raisins. There was a narrow street just off the main square where I lived during a restless year abroad. Small apartments stacked like books, laundry strung between balconies like lines of poetry. And at the far end, shaded by a faded awning and always smelling faintly of spice, was a little kitchen stall run by a Moroccan woman named Lila. She wasn't loud, didn't need to be. Her presence was like steam, quiet, constant, rising with purpose. Every afternoon she'd prepare trays of couscous for passers-by and neighbors, ladling it out with a calm that never wavered, even when the line stretched down the block. Couscous, she once told me, handing over a warm bowl wrapped in a cloth napkin, is good company for your thoughts. It listens without interrupting. It fills the silence but never breaks it. I didn't understand what she meant until much later, until I made it for myself one evening, long after I'd returned home. It was late, and the house was still. I needed something simple, something soft, something warm enough to fill the air, but not so loud that it pulled me from my thoughts. So I made couscous the way she showed me. Start with water, just enough to steam, not boil. Bring it to a gentle simmer with a pinch of salt and a dab of butter. Let the butter melt slowly, pooling in golden swirls on the surface. Then stir in the couscous, dry, fine grains that disappear into the water almost instantly. Cover the pot, Turn off the heat and wait. No stirring, no peeking, just trust. In those 5 quiet minutes, the steam works its magic. The grains soften and swell, becoming something more than the sum of their parts. When you lift the lid, it smells faintly of warmth and patience. Fluff it gently with a fork, letting the grains separate like falling sand. Then stir in another small knob of butter. Nothing extravagant, just enough to coat. It melts into the couscous, making it glisten faintly. Add raisins last, just a handful. Their sweetness is soft, not sharp, like memories that surface gently without pain. That's it. That's the whole dish. But it's not plain, it's purposeful. When you eat it, the couscous doesn't try to impress. It simply welcomes you back to yourself. The raisins bring little bursts of warmth. The butter lingers on your lips, comforting without crowding. It's the kind of dish that fills the room without needing conversation. And perhaps that's why Lila served it to so many. Students, workers, elders, children. Everyone had their own silence to sit with. Couscous was just the company that let them do it. So if tonight your thoughts are swirling, or you're craving a pause, make this. Boil the water, add the grains, and wait. Let it soften in the dark. Let it be easy. Let it be enough. And as you eat, may you find your mind quieting too. May you remember the comfort of simple things, well made, of women at stalls who teach without trying, of food that doesn't interrupt, but stays beside you. Good night. Sleep with full belly and calm thoughts. Let the quiet in, let the warmth stay. That was recipe 4. Good night. The 5th recipe tonight is chocolate dipped strawberries. Just a few. There are certain things that mark the beginning of a life quietly without fanfare. For me, it wasn't a graduation or a promotion. It was the way melted chocolate clung to a strawberry, glossy and still warm. As I stood beside the first chef I ever loved, I was 17, green, clumsy, barely out of high school. I'd just started at La Hotel Sant, a place where the tablecloths were starched, and even the silence had posture. It was a grand kitchen, full of silver and heat, and I was barely a shadow there. But she moved like she belonged in every corner. She wasn't like the other chefs, all fire and flourish. No, she was light-hearted, almost mischievous, and terribly kind. Her laughter was soft but constant, like a saucepan simmering low. The sous chefs adored her, followed her rhythm without question. Even the gruff old guard manger softened when she passed by. Most nights, after service had calmed, she'd look at what was left. Some fruit, a half block of dark couverture, a few tired herbs, and she'd create something just for us, not for the guests, not for the critics, just for the joy of it. One night, we found a few fresh strawberries forgotten, barely bruised. She smiled at me, then pointed to a glass bowl, and the last of the chocolate. "You know how to temper it?" she asked. I shook my head, embarrassed. She just handed me the chocolate and said, "Glass bowl, gentle heat, and patience." We melted it slowly over hot water, never letting the bottom touch. She didn't rush me, just watched, smiling as I stirred. "If it looks like it's thinking too hard," she joked, "you've gone too far." When the chocolate was smooth, she lifted a strawberry by the stem and dipped it, slowly, deliberately. The chocolate caught it like a velvet cloak. She held it for a second, letting the excess drip back into the bowl, then placed it on a tray lined with parchment. We didn't talk much, just dipped, set, dipped again. The kitchen was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't need filling. There was stillness in the air, but not cold. Warm, like a story being written. When we were done, she made a small plate, only 3 strawberries, and placed it at the pass. "Someone complained rudely tonight," she said with a small shrug. "This will say more than I can." That was her way. Never with noise, always with grace. I watched her, and I knew, right then, I would be a chef. And I still make them, from time to time, when the evening needs softening, when there's something I can't say. It doesn't take much. A bowl, some good chocolate, a few ripe strawberries. The trick isn't in the recipe, it's in the waiting. The chocolate should be glossy, not rushed. The strawberries should be cold, but not numb. Dip them gently. Let them set. Don't crowd the tray. Don't break the silence. Just let them become what they are meant to be. A small, thoughtful kindness. So tonight, if the day's been harsh, or you've carried more than your share, make a few, just a few. Dip them slowly. Let the chocolate shine. And as they set, think of the kitchens that shaped you, the people who taught you quiet joy, the first crushes that opened your world. Then take a bite. Let the shell crack softly. Let the fruit burst sweet beneath, and smile, because even small things can taste like beginnings. Good night. Sleep gently. Let the sweetness linger. That was recipe 5. The 6th recipe tonight is lemon sugar pancakes, mini size. There was a time early in my London years when I was all sharp corners and sleepless ambition. A young stag-year, I had traded everything for the hope of proving myself in kitchens I'd only read about. I spent most days tucked in prep rooms, fingers nicked from peeling, heart thudding with anxiety. But Friday nights, that was when May made pancakes. May was a baker from Hackney, not trained in any formal sense, but she baked with the kind of instinct you can't teach, like she had yeast running in her veins. She worked the early morning shift at the bakery attached to the restaurant where I staged, and every Friday evening before heading home, she'd clear a corner of the griddle and make the tiniest pancakes you'd ever seen. They were for her niece, she told me. A tradition. The child called them mooncakes because of their shape, small, round, soft as bedtime stories. May dusted each with lemon sugar, a mix she kept in a recycled jam jar, labeled only with a hand-drawn star. "It's for sparkle," she'd say, shaking it like a snowfall. At first I didn't pay much attention. I was too busy sweating over Jus and Musen. But one evening, after a particularly rough day, I lingered by the back counter. She saw me watching. Without asking, she slid over a mini pancake, still warm from the griddle, lemon sugar melting just slightly on top. I remember the way it smelled, citrus and warmth, like a sunny morning saved in a jar. I took a bite. The edges were golden and slightly crisp, the center tender, with just the faintest tang from buttermilk and lemon zest. Sweet, but not cloying. Bright, like someone whispering a lullaby into your food. That night, May showed me how to make them. "They're not real pancakes," she warned. "They're gentler. They don't want to be flipped too soon, and they don't like being rushed." She mixed the batter by feel: flour, baking powder, a pinch of salt, a spoonful of sugar, and always the zest of 1 lemon. Then came the buttermilk, just enough to loosen the batter without letting it run. An egg, cracked with a tap on the counter. And finally, a splash of vanilla. "For dreams," she joked. The griddle was low heat, the batter spooned in with care, just a tablespoon at a time. They puffed slightly, steam rising in small size. She waited until tiny bubbles formed and held, then flipped them gently, like tucking a child into bed. As they cooked, she handed me the jar of lemon sugar. "Dust them while they're hot. Otherwise, the stars won't stick." I made them with her for months, even after my stage ended, even as I moved on to more demanding kitchens. Something about those mooncakes stayed with me. the quiet they invited, the small joy they offered, without needing to impress. Now, when the world feels like too much, or I need to wind down from the noise of grown-up life, I make them. Just a few, small, soft, dusted in lemon sugar. I call them mooncakes too, though no child waits for them. I mix the batter slow. I zest the lemon with care. I heat the pan gently, and when I flip each cake, I do it like May taught me, with patience, with calm, with the kind of kindness that can only live in small things. So if tonight you need something gentle, something that won't demand much, but will give you everything, make these, make them tiny. Call them mooncakes if you like. Dust them with lemon sugar like stardust, and eat them warm, one by one, as the sky darkens and the world softens, then rest. Sleep with the scent of lemon still lingering on your fingers, and dream of soft griddles, patient hands, and a baker who believed pancakes could carry peace. Good night and sweet dreams. That was recipe 6. The 7th recipe tonight is steamed milk with cardamom and honey. It was a deep winter in Edinburgh, a year I remember mostly through the ache in my ankles and the chill that never seemed to leave my bones. I was doing overnights then, late prep work, silent line checks, reorganizing walk-ins under the hum of tired fluorescent lights. Those hours pull at you, not just the body, but something quieter, something you don't even notice wearing thin until someone offers kindness. That someone for me, well, his name was Arun. He was the night porter at the small hotel above the restaurant where I worked. Grey hair, pressed jacket, a voice as soft as folded linen. He moved like time was never in short supply. No matter how fast or chaotic the night had been, Arun never matched our pace. He stayed steady. He was the last person I saw most nights, and somehow that always made things feel calmer. The first time he made it, I'd just finished a 14-hour shift. I was covered in flour and oil, eyes barely open, waiting for the last invoice delivery. He appeared quietly beside me, holding a ceramic mug with both hands. "This helps," he said. It was steamed milk, gently perfumed, sweet but not sugary, warm like the inside of a hug. "Cardamom," he whispered, like the word itself had weight. It slows the heart in a good way. From then on, he made it often, never asked, just brought it. Some nights with a biscuit, some nights just the mug. I started to look forward to it, those 10 minutes of warmth before the cold walk home. It wasn't the milk, really, it was the ritual. He'd steeped 2 green cardamom pods in a small pan of milk, always whole milk, always slow heat, no boiling, just steam rising in a soft curl. Then a spoon of honey, stirred once, not rushed. He'd strain it through a tiny sieve he kept in his locker, polish the mug rim with his sleeve, and hand it over as if he were passing on something sacred. I asked him once, why cardamom? He smiled, eyes bright beneath tired lids. "Back home, it's for weddings, prayers, new babies, and sleep. It's for things you want to remember, gently." I never forgot that. Years later, I still make it. On nights that press too hard, on nights I miss the quiet between closing and sunrise, I steep the pods slow, breathe in the scent, and think of Arun's words. The way he held that mug, as if calm could be shared like tea. The way he never hurried, even in a world that rewards nothing more than speed. So if tonight feels heavy, if the day clung to you more than it should, make this. Take whole milk and warm it without rushing. Add 2 crushed cardamom pods. Let them whisper into the steam. Then stir in a spoon of honey, not fast, just enough to fold it in. Strain it, hold the mug close, and sip slow. Let the warmth coat your ribs. Let the cardamom do what it does. Ground you, slow you, soften the edges of the day. And as you drink, imagine someone standing beside you, calm and unshaken, handing you a moment of rest without asking for anything in return. Sleep well, dream slow, and remember, Kindness is sometimes a warm cup passed between tired hands. Good night. That was recipe 7. having trouble sleeping. I was once young and ambitious and had many sleepless nights. When I need to fall asleep, I may read, I may have a snack, but I always pull back fond memories to soothe my mind. Never of my restaurant and achieving my Michelin stars, but always of my first week at Hotel St. George, or learning the way to truly cook at the Box Tree. And finally, when I became a man at Le Gavroche. Search for your own memories, forget the troubles awaiting you, and drift off keeping in mind these recipes for sleep. Having trouble sleeping. I was once young and ambitious and had many sleepless nights. When I need to fall asleep, I may read, I may have a snack, but I always pull back fond memories to soothe my mind. Never of my restaurant and achieving my Michelin stars, but always of my first week at Hotel St. George, or learning the way to truly cook at the Box Tree. And finally, when I became a man at Le Gavroche. Search for your own memories, forget the troubles awaiting you, and drift off keeping in mind these recipes for sleep. having trouble sleeping. I was once young and ambitious and had many sleepless nights. When I need to fall asleep, I may read, I may have a snack, but I always pull back fond memories to soothe my mind. Never of my restaurant and achieving my Michelin stars, but always of my first week at Hotel St. George, or learning the way to truly cook at the Box Tree. And finally, when I became a man at Le Gavroche. Search for your own memories, forget the troubles awaiting you, and drift off keeping in mind these recipes for sleep. having trouble sleeping. I was once young and ambitious and had many sleepless nights. When I need to fall asleep, I may read, I may have a snack, but I always pull back fond memories to soothe my mind. Never of my restaurant and achieving my Michelin stars, but always of my first week at Hotel St. George, or learning the way to truly cook at the Box Tree. And finally, when I became a man at Le Gavroche. Search for your own memories, forget the troubles awaiting you, and drift off keeping in mind these recipes for sleep. Having trouble sleeping. I was once young and ambitious and had many sleepless nights. When I need to fall asleep, I may read, I may have a snack, but I always pull back fond memories to soothe my mind. Never of my restaurant and achieving my Michelin stars, but always of my first week at Hotel St. George, or learning the way to truly cook at the Box Tree. And finally, when I became a man at Le Gavroche. Search for your own memories, forget the troubles awaiting you, and drift off keeping in mind these recipes for sleep. Having trouble sleeping. I was once young and ambitious and had many sleepless nights. When I need to fall asleep, I may read, I may have a snack, but I always pull back fond memories to soothe my mind. Never of my restaurant and achieving my Michelin stars, but always of my first week at Hotel St. George, or learning the way to truly cook at the Box Tree. And finally, when I became a man at Le Gavroche. Search for your own memories, forget the troubles awaiting you, and drift off keeping in mind these recipes for sleep. Having trouble sleeping. I was once young and ambitious and had many sleepless nights. When I need to fall asleep, I may read, I may have a snack, but I always pull back fond memories to soothe my mind. Never of my restaurant and achieving my Michelin stars, but always of my first week at Hotel St. George, or learning the way to truly cook at the Box Tree. And finally, when I became a man at Le Gavroche. Search for your own memories, forget the troubles awaiting you, and drift off keeping in mind these recipes for sleep.